Everyone assumes I love living in China because it's cheap, and that's actually not why. In fact, thinking about it that way almost kept me from ever truly feeling at home here. People ask me all the time, your money must go so much further there, right? And sure, a lot of things do cost less than what I grew up with in America. A meal that might cost $15 or $20 in the US could cost a fraction of that here. Housing, transportation, and everyday services can look very different. And when I first moved here, I noticed those differences too. But after living in China for several years, I realized something. I don't actually think of my life here as cheap. I think of it as mine. And that shift that got me there wasn't about prices. It was realizing I was measuring my life against an economy I wasn't living in anymore. And I think this idea applies way beyond living abroad, whether you're moving countries, moving cities, or even staying exactly where you are and where you've always lived. How you measure your life against everyone else's changes everything about how you experience it. Our first instinct when we experience a new place or environment is usually comparison. We see a price and instantly translate it into something familiar. We think, that would cost me so much more back home, or wow, this is so much cheaper than where I'm from. And comparison can actually be very useful and normal for humans. It helps you understand differences, it helps you start making sense of a new place. But if comparison becomes the only way you understand value, you never fully adapt to where you are, and you end up living somewhere physically, while mentally you're still doing math against a place you moved away from. And I think this happens more often than we realize. Sometimes we're not actually experiencing our current life. We're constantly measuring it against another version of life somewhere else. One of the biggest lessons I learned after moving to China is this. Every place has its own economic rhythm. A price isn't random. It's shaped by so many factors like local wages, rent, materials, supply chains, consumer habits, and what people in that community can realistically afford. So instead of asking myself, how much is this in US dollars? I started asking myself, does this price make sense here? Because a bowl of noodles isn't just a number I convert. It's the person who spent years learning how to make it. It's the ingredients, it's the rent of that small storefront, it's the neighborhood it sits in, it's the people who come back every day to support that business. The price is a reflection of the place, not a discount on my old one. And understanding that gave me a much deeper appreciation for everyday life. Growing up, I was always taught, live within your means. And I think most people understand that idea. Don't spend more than you earn, don't constantly chase things you can't afford. But living abroad taught me there was another layer to that. Your means aren't just equal to your income. They're also linked to your economic reality around you. They're the prices, expectations, and definition of normal in the place where you're building your life. Because every place has its own idea of what is affordable, what is a luxury, what is everyday. And this is something I've especially noticed through my marriage. When I first moved to China, I wasn't just observing another culture from the outside. I was actually building a life with someone who already understood this place. My husband grew up here, and the way we think about spending, saving, and everyday choices comes from two different environments. Not because one person is right and the other person is wrong, but because we each absorb different ideas about what was normal. So living together really made me realize that many of the things we consider common sense are actually shaped by where we grew up. The way we define comfort, the way we define convenience, and the way we decide what is worth spending money on. None of these choices exist in a vacuum. They're actually influenced by culture and economy around us. And that's when it really clicked for me. I wasn't just adapting to a new country, I was also unlearning a whole set of assumptions I never knew I had. I could live like my American income is the only rule that matters. I could go to expensive restaurants every week, I could buy more things, I could create a lifestyle that would still look affordable compared to America. But that really isn't the point. The question I ask myself now is, does this fit the life I'm actually living? Because a restaurant that feels like a special occasion for someone living here could quietly become my everyday habit if I'm only thinking in dollars. And without realizing it, you can start creating some distance between yourself and the place you're actually living in. So instead, I try to understand what makes sense here. I shop where my neighbors shop, I eat at normal neighborhood restaurants. My routine is pretty ordinary, but honestly, that ordinary life is exactly what helped this place start to feel like home. Because I wasn't just benefiting from a different country's economy, I was actually participating in it. Honestly, this lesson isn't just for people who want to move abroad. I think this applies no matter where you live. Because all of us compare naturally. We compare ourselves to someone living in a different city, someone making a different salary, or even someone with a different lifestyle. And social media makes this even harder because we're constantly seeing small pieces of other people's lives and comparing them to our entire reality. A question I've learned to ask myself is, am I evaluating my life based on where I actually am? Or am I constantly comparing it to somewhere I'm not? Because what feels affordable or successful or meaningful depends so much on context. Someone living in a small town, someone living in New York City, someone living overseas, they all have different realities, and the goal isn't to maximize what you can get. The goal is to build a life that actually makes sense where you are. So, when people ask me, do you live in China because it's cheap? My answer is no. I love living here because it taught me to see things differently. It taught me that value isn't just about the number on a price tag. It's about understanding the world around that number. Because when you learn to live within a country you're actually in physically, you stop feeling like you're missing out on another life. You start appreciating the one you're building, because home isn't the place where things cost less. It's the place you take the time to actually understand deeply. And I think that's something we can all do, whether we move across the world or stay exactly where we are. If you enjoyed this video and want more conversations about culture, life abroad, and the things that quietly change the way we see the world, make sure to hit subscribe. I'd love to have you along for the journey, and thank you so much for watching.